The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast bowl made of shining crystal. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in rows that rose up toward the ceiling. Some looked like tall, thin trees with silver bark. Others were round and blue with many eyes. A few floated in the air inside glass bubbles filled with green gas. All of them were worried. High Chancellor Zixthera stood at the center of the chamber. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors as she spoke. The light from her form cast rainbows on the walls around her. She had called this emergency, meeting because of something terrible that was coming toward their galaxy. "Friends and allies," she began, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "We face a threat unlike any we have seen before. Ships from beyond our galaxy are coming. They move faster than anything we know. They destroy everything in their path. Our best scientists say they will reach our outer worlds in less than 1 year." A wave of fear moved through the crowd. The tree-like Vorthak rustled their branches. The floating Mentari pulsed with bright orange light. Even the mighty Zephyrians, who were known for their calm nature, shifted nervously in their seats. "But there is hope," Zixthera continued. 3 months ago, our explorers found something on a dead world at the edge of our galaxy. An ancient artifact that might hold the key to stopping these invaders. She raised her hand, and a hologram appeared above her head. It showed a sphere about the size of a basketball. The surface was covered with strange markings and what looked like moving parts. It seemed to glow with its own inner light. "This is the Nexus Sphere," she said. "Our scientists believe it contains a star map that leads to something called the origin point. This may be where all intelligent life in our galaxy first began. If the legends are true, the origin point holds knowledge and technology that could save us all." Dr. Kethvar of the Mentari floated forward in his bubble. His large brain pulsed as he spoke through his translator. "High Chancellor, we have studied this artifact for months. Our greatest minds cannot solve its puzzle. The mathematical complexity is beyond even our understanding." "That is correct," Zixthera replied sadly. "The sphere is locked by a puzzle mechanism that none of us can open. The Zephyrian math masters have tried. The collective's hive mind has failed. Even the quantum computers of the Astral Federation cannot crack its secrets." Commander Thox of the warrior race called the Kralik stood up. His 6 arms crossed over his massive chest. "Then we should break it open. My people can blast through any material." "No!" Several voices cried out at once. The Mentari scientist's brain flashed red with alarm. "Any attempt to force the sphere open will destroy what is inside. The energy." "Readings show that the contents are held in a very delicate state. One wrong move and we lose everything." The chamber fell silent. For months, the brightest minds in the galaxy had worked on this puzzle. Beings who had lived for thousands of years and possessed knowledge that spanned the cosmos had all failed. Time was running out, and they had no answers. Elder Quinn of the Ancient Ethereal spoke next. Her voice was like wind through leaves. "Perhaps we are thinking about this wrong. We have asked only our most advanced civilizations to try. What if the answer lies with a younger race? One that thinks differently than we do?" Some of the beings in the chamber made sounds of doubt. The idea seemed foolish to many. How could a primitive species succeed where they had failed? "I have studied the records of all known intelligent species," Quinn continued. "Most of them think in ways similar to our own. They use logic and mathematics. They rely on advanced technology. But there are a few races that are different. Younger species that still use intuition and creativity." Zixthera's crystal form brightened with interest. "What are you suggesting, Elder?" "I suggest we contact every species in our database, even the ones we consider primitive. Perhaps fresh eyes and different ways of thinking might see what we cannot." The debate that followed was loud and long. Many council members thought the idea was a waste of precious time. The Zephyrians argued that superior intellect was the only way to solve such a complex puzzle. The Mentari insisted that their collective consciousness had already considered every possible angle. But as the hours passed and no better ideas came forward, desperation began to set in. The unknown enemy was getting closer every day. Their scout ships had already destroyed 3 small, colonies on the galaxy's edge. Soon they would reach the more populated systems. Finally, Zixthera called for order. We will try Elder Quinn's suggestion. Send messages to every known intelligent species. Ask them to send their best problem solvers. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain. The crystal being's form flickered as she accessed the Council's vast database. Names and images of hundreds of species flashed through the air above her. Most were familiar, races that had been part of galactic civilization for thousands of years. But near the end of the list were newer entries, species that had only recently developed space travel. One entry caught her attention. It showed a small blue and green planet in a quiet arm of the galaxy. The species there called themselves humans. They had only been contacted a few years ago and were considered quite primitive by galactic standards. They still used chemical rockets and had barely started to explore their own solar system. These humans, she said, highlighting their entry. What do we know about them? A junior aide stepped forward. Very little, High Chancellor. They are a young species, carbon-based. They seem to be curious and adaptable, but their technology is thousands of years behind ours. Most experts consider them unimportant. Zixthera stared at the image of the small blue planet. Something about these humans interested her. Perhaps it was their youth, or the fact that they had survived and thrived on a world that seemed harsh compared to most civilized planets. Add them to the list, she decided. Send the message to every species, including these humans. We cannot afford to overlook any possibility. As the council session ended and the various species returned to their home worlds, none of them truly believed that a primitive race like humanity could succeed where they had failed. The message sent to Earth was more of a formality than a real hope for help. But sometimes the most important solutions come from the most unexpected places. And sometimes what the galaxy considers primitive might actually be exactly what it needs. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on Earth 3 days later. It came through the deep space communication array that humanity had built in orbit around the moon. The signal was so complex that it took the computers 6 hours just to decode it into something humans could understand. General Paul Harrison sat in his office at Space Command headquarters in Colorado. He read the message for the 3rd time and shook his head. The aliens were asking for help with some kind of ancient puzzle. They wanted Earth's best problem solvers to try where their advanced civilizations had failed. This has to be a joke, he muttered to his assistant, Colonel Betty Martinez. They have beings who live for thousands of years and computers that can think faster than light. What could we possibly offer them? Colonel Martinez looked at the message on her tablet. Maybe they're desperate, sir. The threat they describe sounds serious. Ships from outside the galaxy that destroy everything they touch. General Harrison stood up and walked to the window. He could see the Rocky Mountains in the distance. Earth seemed so small and quiet compared to the vast galaxy described in the alien message. Humans had only made contact with the Galactic Council 5 years ago. Before that, they thought they were alone in the universe. We need to respond, he said finally. Even if we can't help, we should try. Send this to all our research centers. Have them look for anyone who might be good at solving puzzles. The message went out to universities and research facilities around the world. Most scientists laughed when they read it. How could humans compete with aliens who had millions of years of advanced evolution? But a few took it seriously. Dr. Peter Coleman was one of them. He worked at the Luna Research Station, a small base on the moon where human families lived and worked. Peter ran the education program for the children who lived there. When he read the message, something clicked in his mind. He remembered a boy named Jake Mitchell. Jake was 12 years old and lived on Luna Station with his parents. His father, Tom Mitchell, was an engineer who worked on the fusion reactors that powered the base. His mother, Dr. Amy Mitchell, studied alien artifacts that human explorers brought back from their travels. Jake was a quiet kid who spent most of his free time in the station's workshop. He loved taking things apart and putting them back together. But what made Jake special was his ability to solve mechanical puzzles that stumped adults. He had a way of looking at complex problems and seeing simple solutions. Dr. Coleman walked through the corridors of Luna Station until he found Jake in the workshop. The boy was sitting at a workbench, carefully taking apart an old Earth clock that someone had brought from home. His dark hair fell over his eyes as he concentrated on the tiny parts. "Hello, Jake," Dr. Coleman said. "Working on something interesting?" Jake looked up and smiled. "Hi, Dr. Coleman. I'm trying to figure out how this old clock works. It's different from the digital ones we use here. See, it has all these tiny wheels and springs that work together." "That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about," Peter said. He sat down next to Jake and showed him the message on his tablet. "The aliens have a puzzle they can't solve. I was wondering if you might take a look at it." Jake read the message slowly. His eyes grew wide as he learned about the Galactic Council and the threat from beyond the galaxy. "You really think I could help? I'm just a kid." "Sometimes being young is an advantage," Peter replied. "You don't have all the rules and assumptions that adults carry around. You see things differently." That evening, Jake sat in his family's small apartment with his parents. Tom Mitchell was a big man with rough hands from years of working with machinery. Amy Mitchell was smaller and quieter, but she had sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I don't like this," Tom said when Peter Coleman explained the situation. "Jake is just 12 years old. This is too much responsibility for a child." "But Dad," Jake said, "what if I can really help? What if there's something I can see that the aliens can't?" Amy Mitchell looked at her son with concern. She had spent years studying alien technology and knew how advanced these civilizations were. "Sweetheart, these beings are incredibly intelligent. They have knowledge and abilities we can barely imagine. What makes you think you can succeed where they have failed?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up the old Earth clock he had been working on. "Remember when Grandpa used to visit us before we moved to Luna? He always brought me those old puzzle boxes from his workshop. You know, the wooden ones with hidden compartments and secret locks." His parents nodded. Jake's grandfather had been a master carpenter who loved making intricate puzzle boxes. He had taught Jake the secrets of understanding how such puzzles worked. "Grandpa always said that the best puzzle makers don't just make something hard to solve," Jake continued. "They make something that tells a story, something that makes you think like the person who built it. Maybe that's what this alien puzzle needs. Someone who thinks like the people who made it, not like a super advanced computer." Amy Mitchell felt a chill run down her spine. Her son was right in a way that frightened her. In all her studies of alien artifacts, she had noticed that the very advanced civilizations seemed to have lost something. They were incredibly logical and efficient, but they had given up the creativity and intuition that humans still possessed. The next morning, Dr. Coleman brought Jake detailed scans and holographic projections of the Nexus sphere. The boy studied them for hours, making notes, in a simple notebook with a pencil. While alien scientists had created complex mathematical models and quantum analysis charts, Jake drew simple sketches and wrote down his thoughts in everyday language. "It looks like a music box," he said after studying the images all day. "You know those old ones with the tiny ballerina that spins around when you wind them up. There are hidden switches and pressure points that you have to press in the right order." Dr. Coleman looked at Jake's sketches. They seemed almost childish compared to the advanced analysis the aliens had done. But there was something about the boy's approach that felt right. While the aliens were trying to solve a mathematical equation, Jake was trying to understand a mechanical device. Word of Jake's interest spread quickly through Luna Station. Some people thought it was foolish to pin their hopes on a 12-year-old boy. Others remembered stories from Earth's history about young people who had made great discoveries because they saw things differently than adults. Jake's parents finally agreed to let him try, but only if he could work on the puzzle from Luna Station. They didn't want their son traveling across the galaxy to alien worlds. Dr. Coleman sent Jake's initial observations back to Earth, along with a request for more detailed information about the Nexus sphere. The response from Earth was mixed. Some officials were excited that they had found someone willing to try. Others thought it was embarrassing to send a child's drawings to advanced alien civilizations. But time was running short, and they had no better options. As Jake continued to study the puzzle, he began to see patterns that reminded him of his grandfather's wooden boxes. The alien scientists had been looking for mathematical solutions, but Jake saw a mechanical lock that required touch and intuition rather than calculation. "I think I need to actually touch it," he told Dr. Coleman one evening. "These old-style puzzles don't just work with your brain. You have to feel them with your hands. The person who made this wanted someone to understand them, not just solve an equation." Dr. Coleman realized that Jake might be right, but getting a 12-year-old boy to the Galactic Council chambers would require convincing a lot of very important people that a child could succeed where the galaxy's greatest minds had failed. The spaceship UES Harmony was the newest vessel in Earth's small fleet. It was designed to carry human diplomats to meetings with alien civilizations. Captain Lisa Barnes had commanded the ship for 2 years, but she had never carried a passenger, quite like Jake Mitchell. She watched the 12-year-old boy through the observation window of the ship's main corridor. Jake sat in the passenger lounge, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Nexus sphere from every possible angle. His simple notebook lay open beside him, filled with sketches and notes written in a child's handwriting. "I still can't believe we're doing this," Captain Barnes said to her first officer, Lieutenant Mark Davis. "We're taking a kid to solve a puzzle that has stumped the entire galaxy." Lieutenant Davis nodded toward Jake. "Look at him, Captain. He's been studying those images for 3 days straight. He sees something the rest of us don't." Jake had convinced Earth's leaders to let him travel to the Galactic Council chambers. It had taken Dr. Coleman, his parents, and several important scientists to make the case. In the end, desperation had won. The alien threat was getting closer every day, and humanity had nothing else to offer. The journey to the council chambers took 5 days. During that time, Jake continued to study the puzzle. He made hundreds of small drawings showing different parts of the sphere and how they might move. While the aliens had created complex computer models, Jake drew pictures that looked like the diagrams in his grandfather's old puzzle books. "It's not just one puzzle," he explained to Captain Barnes one evening. "It's like a series of locks that have to be opened in the right order. But the tricky part is that each lock changes the others. You have to think about the whole thing at once, not just solve one piece at a time." Captain Barnes looked at his drawings and tried to understand. "The alien scientists have said the same thing. They know the parts are connected, but they can't figure out the pattern." "That's because they're thinking like machines," Jake replied. "They want to solve it with math and logic, but this was made by someone who thought more like us, someone who wanted to tell a story with their puzzle." When the Harmony arrived at the council chambers, Jake got his first look at the incredible structure. It was a massive space station that looked like a crystal flower floating in space. Ships from hundreds of different worlds were docked at its many arms. Some of the vessels were so strange that Jake couldn't even tell which end was the front. Inside the station, Jake felt very small. The corridors were huge, designed to accommodate beings of many different sizes. Some aliens were as tiny as mice, while others were as large as elephants. A few didn't even have solid bodies but floated as clouds of glowing gas. The beings they passed in the hallways stared at Jake with curiosity and doubt. Word had spread that the humans were bringing a child to solve the galaxy's greatest puzzle. Most of the aliens found this either amusing or insulting. High Chancellor Zixathera met them at the entrance to the main puzzle chamber. Her crystal body glowed with nervous energy as she looked down at Jake. "So you are the human who thinks he can solve our mystery," she said. Her voice was like music, but Jake could hear the doubt in it. "I'd like to try, ma'am," Jake replied, politely. "I've been studying the pictures, but I think I need to touch the real thing to understand it better." The chamber where the Nexus sphere was kept looked like a laboratory from a science fiction movie. Dozens of alien scientists worked at strange machines that hummed and glowed with their own light. In the center of the room, the sphere sat on a platform surrounded by scanning devices and robotic arms. Dr. Kethvar of the Mentari floated forward in his bubble. His large brain pulsed with skeptical thoughts. "Young human, we have been studying this artifact for months. Our greatest minds have applied every form of analysis known to galactic science. What makes you think you can succeed where we have failed?" Jake walked up to the platform and stared at the sphere. It was more beautiful than the pictures had shown. The surface seemed to shift and change as he looked at it, and he could feel a strange warmth coming from inside. "May I touch it?" he asked. Several aliens made sounds of alarm. "Absolutely not," Dr. Kethvar exclaimed. "The artifact is too valuable to risk damage from crude physical contact." But High Chancellor Zixthera held up her hand for silence. "Let the boy try," she said. "We have nothing left to lose." Jake carefully placed his hands on the sphere's surface. The material felt warm and slightly soft, like living wood. As his fingers traced the patterns on its surface, he began to understand things that hadn't been clear in the pictures. "It's not just a puzzle," he said softly. "It's like a musical instrument. These raised parts here aren't just decorations. They're buttons that you press in rhythm. And these curved lines aren't just pretty patterns. They show you which way to turn the different sections." The alien scientists gathered around as Jake began to work. His approach was completely different from theirs. While they had been trying to calculate the correct sequence, Jake was feeling his way through the puzzle like a musician learning a new song. He pressed a series of raised bumps in a pattern that reminded him of his grandfather's music boxes. There was a soft clicking sound and part of the sphere rotated slightly. The aliens gasped in amazement. After months of failure, the human child had made progress in just minutes. "How did you know to do that?" asked Elder Quinn of the ethereal, her voice like wind through leaves. "My grandpa taught me about these old mechanical puzzles," Jake explained as he continued working. "He said the best ones are made by people who want to share something beautiful, not just create a hard problem. This feels like it was made by someone who loved music and wanted others to feel that same joy." As Jake worked through the night, more and more sections of the sphere began to move and change. Each success revealed new layers of complexity, but also provided clues about the next steps. The alien scientists watched in fascination as the boy used intuition and creativity to solve problems that had defeated their most advanced computers. Commander Thox of the Kralex warriors stood with his 6 arms crossed, shaking his massive head. "This is impossible. A child cannot succeed where our greatest minds have failed. But he is succeeding," whispered Dr. Vexthara, the chief scientist of the Zephyrian Mathematics Council. "He is approaching the puzzle in ways we never considered. He treats it as a living thing rather than a mathematical equation." By dawn, Jake had unlocked more of the sphere than anyone had thought possible. Sections that had been solid and unmoving for months now rotated and shifted in response to his touch. Strange symbols glowed on the surface and a soft humming sound came from deep inside. The boy looked tired but excited. His simple notebook was filled with new drawings and observations. While the alien scientists had produced thousands of pages of complex analysis, Jake's childish sketches had proven more valuable than all their advanced mathematics. "I think I'm close," he told the assembled crowd of beings. "Just a few more sequences and it should open completely. But I need to understand one more thing about the people who made this. They weren't just puzzle makers. They were storytellers. This whole thing is trying to tell us something about who they were and what they believed in." High Chancellor Zixthera looked at the partially opened sphere with wonder. After months of despair, she finally felt hope. The human child had done the impossible. He had found a way to connect with minds that had been gone for millions of years. "Continue, young Jake," she said softly. "Show us what the ancient ones wanted us to learn." Jake stared at the Nexus sphere as the first light of the station's artificial dawn filled the chamber. He had been working for almost 12 hours straight, and his hands were tired from feeling along the sphere's surface. But he was so close, now. He could sense it. "Tell us what you're thinking, young human," said High Chancellor Zixthera. Her crystal body had been glowing brighter as Jake made progress through the night. Hope was something she hadn't felt in months. Jake wiped his hands on his shirt and looked at the crowd of alien scientists surrounding him. "The people who made this weren't like you," he said simply. "I don't mean that in a bad way. But they were different from how most of you think now." Dr. Kethvar's brain pulsed with curiosity inside his floating bubble. "How do you mean, child?" "Well, you all think with computers and math and logic," Jake explained. "That's really smart, and you can solve amazing problems that way. But the people who built this sphere thought more with their hearts. They felt things deeply. They made this puzzle because they wanted to share something beautiful, not just hide something important. Elder Quinn of the Ethereal drifted closer. You speak of them as if you knew them personally. Jake nodded and placed his hands back on the sphere. In a way, I do know them. Every time I solve part of their puzzle, I learn something about how they thought and what they cared about. It's like reading a story written in metal and crystal instead of words. He pressed a sequence of symbols that formed a pattern like a flower. The sphere responded with a gentle chime, and another section rotated open. Inside, Jake could see layers of glowing crystals arranged in complex patterns. See, right here, he said, pointing to the newly revealed section. This part is about growth and life. The crystals are arranged like a garden, with each piece representing something that grows and changes. The people who made this loved nature and wanted to show how everything in the universe is connected. Commander Thox of the Kralix stepped forward, his 6 arms still crossed in doubt. How can you possibly know what these ancient beings were thinking? You are just a child making guesses. Jake looked up at the massive warrior with patient eyes. When my grandpa taught me about puzzle boxes, he always said that the best ones tell you about the person who made them. A puzzle made by someone who loves music will have rhythm and harmony. A puzzle made by someone who loves nature will have patterns that grow like plants. This sphere was made by people who loved life and wanted to share that love with anyone smart enough to solve their puzzle. As Jake continued working, he began to hum a simple tune under his breath. It was a song his grandfather used to sing while working in his workshop. Somehow, the melody seemed to match the rhythm of the sphere's movements. That's it, Jake said suddenly, his eyes lighting up with understanding. It's not just about pressing the right buttons in the right order. It's about timing. Like playing music, you have to feel the rhythm of the whole thing. He began working. Faster now, his hands moving across the sphere's surface like a pianist playing a complex piece of music. Each touch was timed to match the humming sound that came from deep inside the artifact. The alien scientists watched in amazement as sections of the sphere began opening in rapid succession. Impossible, whispered Dr. Vexithera of the Zephyrian Mathematics Council. He is solving in minutes what took us months to even understand. He is not solving it, corrected Elder Quinn. He is having a conversation with it. The sphere is responding to him because he understands what it wants to communicate. As more sections opened, the chamber filled with a soft, warm light. The sphere was revealing its inner workings, showing layer after layer of incredible complexity. But instead of cold metal and circuits, Jake saw something that looked almost alive. Crystals pulsed with gentle light, and delicate metal tracery formed patterns that reminded him of flower vines. They were artists, Jake said in wonder. The people who made this weren't just scientists or engineers. They were artists who wanted to create something beautiful that would last forever. Captain Lisa Barnes, who had been watching quietly from the back of the chamber, stepped forward. Jake, are you okay? You've been working for hours without a break. Jake looked back at her and smiled. I'm fine, Captain. Actually, I feel great. It's like this sphere is happy that someone finally understands it. After all these millions of years, someone is finally listening to what it's trying to say. The boy turned back to the artifact and placed both hands on what appeared to be the final locking mechanism. It was more complex than any of the others, with symbols and patterns covering every surface. But Jake had learned to read the language of the ancient builders. This last part is about hope, he said softly. They knew that someday their civilization would be gone, but they believed that other beings would come after them. Beings who would need the knowledge they had gathered. This whole puzzle is their way of saying hello to the future. Jake began the final sequence. His hands moved with confidence now, pressing symbols and rotating sections in a pattern that seemed to flow like poetry. The sphere responded with music, actual music that filled the chamber with harmonies more beautiful than anything the assembled aliens had ever heard. The final lock clicked open with a sound like a gentle sigh. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire sphere began to glow with brilliant light. The outer shell opened like a flower, revealing a core of pure crystal that pulsed with rainbow colors. Suddenly, The chamber was filled with a three-dimensional star map that stretched from floor to ceiling. Thousands of star systems appeared as points of light, connected by glowing lines that showed the paths between worlds. At the center of the map, one system glowed brighter than all the others. The origin point. Breathed High Chancellor Zixthera. He has done it. The human child has unlocked the location of the origin point. But the map showed more than just star positions. It told the story of how intelligence had spread across the galaxy millions of years ago. It showed the rise and fall of the ancient civilization that had built the sphere. And most importantly, it revealed the location of technology and knowledge that could help defend against the threat from beyond the galaxy. Jake staggered back from the sphere, suddenly exhausted. Captain Barnes caught him as he swayed on his feet. The boy looked up at the incredible star map floating above them and smiled. "They wanted us to find this," he said weakly. "They knew that someday new threats would come. They left this here as a gift for whoever would need it. They wanted to help us, even though they knew they would be gone." Dr. Kethvar floated forward, his brain pulsing with excitement and amazement. "Young human, you have accomplished something that should have been impossible. How did you know to approach the puzzle this way?" Jake looked around at all the alien faces staring at him with wonder and respect. "I guess I just remembered something my grandpa told me. He said that the best way to understand someone is to listen to what they're really trying to tell you. These ancient people weren't trying to keep us out. They were trying to welcome us in." The chamber fell silent as the full meaning of Jake's words sank in. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had spent months trying to break into the sphere, by force or logic, but it had taken a 12-year-old human boy to understand that the puzzle wasn't meant to be broken. It was meant to be befriended. As the aliens began studying the star map and making plans to visit the origin point, Jake sat quietly in a corner with his simple notebook. He was already drawing sketches of the beautiful patterns he had seen inside the sphere, trying to capture the essence of what the ancient builders had wanted to share. The galaxy would never be the same, and it was all because a human child had remembered how to listen with his heart. News of Jake's success spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major news network in known space was broadcasting the story of the human boy who had solved the impossible puzzle. Jake Mitchell, a 12-year-old, from Luna Colony, had become the most famous person in galactic history. The star map that Jake had unlocked changed everything. The origin point was located in a distant system that no one had ever explored. According to the ancient records hidden in the sphere, it contained technologies and knowledge that could help defend against any threat, including the mysterious invaders from beyond the galaxy. High Chancellor Zixthera called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from every known species gathered to discuss what they had learned. But this time, humans were given seats of honor at the front of the Great Chamber. "The human child has done more than solve our puzzle," Zixthera announced to the assembled crowd. "He has shown us something we had forgotten. In our pursuit of advanced technology and pure logic, we lost touch with qualities that are essential for true understanding." Jake sat beside Captain Barnes in the front row, still wearing his simple clothes from Luna Colony. He felt small among all the grand alien beings, but he no longer felt out of place. The way they looked at him now was different. There was respect in their eyes, and something else that took him a moment to recognize. It was gratitude. Dr. Kethvar of the Mentari floated forward to address the council. "We must acknowledge that our approach to the puzzle was fundamentally flawed. We treated it as an equation to be solved, rather than a message to be understood. The humans, despite their primitive technology, possess something we have evolved beyond. They still think with intuition and emotion alongside logic." Elder Quinn of the Ethereal spoke next. "This boy has reminded us that wisdom is not the same as intelligence. Knowledge is not the same as understanding. We have spent so long becoming smarter that we forgot how to be wise." The discussion that followed would reshape galactic civilization. For the first time in thousands of years, the advanced species began to question whether their evolution toward pure logic had cost them something important. They realized that diversity of thought was not just useful, but essential for solving complex problems. Commander Thox of the Kralek stood up, his 6 arms no longer crossed in doubt. "I was wrong to dismiss the human child," he admitted. His success proves that there are different kinds of strength. Sometimes the ability to feel and imagine is more powerful than the ability to calculate. Plans were quickly made to send expeditions to the origin point. But instead of using only their most advanced ships and computers, the Council decided to include representatives from younger species. They wanted beings who still thought with creativity and intuition, not just logic and mathematics. Jake was invited to join the expedition, but he politely declined. "I think I've done enough traveling for a while," he said with a smile. "I'd like to go home to my family. Besides, there are probably lots of other puzzles on Luna Colony that need solving." The journey back to Earth took 5 days, just like the trip out. But everything felt different now. Captain Barnes noticed that her crew treated Jake with a new kind of respect. He wasn't just a passenger anymore. He was the boy who had saved the galaxy. During the trip, Jake received dozens of messages from alien scientists and leaders. They wanted to know more about human thinking and problem-solving methods. Some asked if he could teach their own children to approach puzzles the way he did. "I don't think I can teach it," Jake told Captain Barnes one evening as they looked out at the stars. "It's not really a skill you can learn from books. It's more about remembering to see things like a child does, without all the rules and assumptions that grown-ups carry around." When the Harmony arrived at Luna Colony, Jake was surprised to find a crowd waiting for him. His parents, Tom and Amy Mitchell, stood at the front of the group with tears in their eyes. Dr. Peter Coleman was there too, along with most of the other families who lived on the station. "Welcome home, son," his father said, pulling him into a big hug. "We're so proud of you." Jake's mother held him tight. "You did something amazing out there, but we're just happy to have you back safe." Over the following weeks, Jake's life slowly returned to normal. He went back to his classes with Dr. Coleman and spent time in the workshop taking apart old machines. But he also began receiving visitors from across the galaxy. Alien scientists came to Luna Colony to study human problem-solving methods. Some even brought their own children to learn from Jake. The boy found himself becoming an unofficial teacher. He showed young aliens how to approach puzzles with creativity instead of just logic. He taught them to listen to their intuition and to think about the feelings of whoever had created the problem they were trying to solve. "The most important thing," he would tell his alien students, "is to remember that every puzzle has a person behind it. Someone made it for a reason. If you can understand what they were trying to say, the solution becomes much easier." Meanwhile, the expeditions to the origin point began sending back incredible discoveries. The ancient technology they found there was helping to prepare defenses against the approaching threat. But more importantly, the knowledge they recovered was changing how galactic civilization thought about intelligence and wisdom. Universities across the galaxy began teaching courses on primitive thinking and emotional logic. Scientists who had spent their careers pursuing pure mathematical truth started learning to value intuition and creativity. The rigid hierarchy of galactic civilization, which had always placed the most advanced species at the top, began to change. Humans suddenly found themselves in high demand as advisors and consultants. Their ability to think outside established patterns made them valuable for solving all kinds of problems that had stumped more advanced civilizations. Human colonies began receiving offers of advanced technology and trade agreements, but perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed intelligence itself. For too long, they had believed that being smarter meant being better. Jake had shown them that different kinds of thinking were not primitive or advanced, just different, and that diversity of thought was essential for facing new challenges. One evening, as Jake sat in his family's apartment working on a new puzzle box that Dr. Coleman had given him, he received a special message. It came directly from High Chancellor Zixathera herself. "Young Jake," the message said, "the Galactic Council has decided to create a new position. We want someone to help us remember the importance of seeing problems with fresh eyes and open hearts. We would be honored if you would serve as our special advisor for creative problem solving." Jake read the message twice, then looked out the window at the Earth hanging in the black sky above Luna Colony. He thought about his grandfather and the wooden puzzle boxes that had started this whole adventure. He thought about the ancient builders of the Nexus Sphere and their message of hope across millions of years. Then he picked up his pencil and wrote a simple reply. I'd be happy to help whenever you need me, but I think the most important thing is for everyone to remember that the best solutions come when we work together and listen to each other with open minds and hearts. Jake Mitchell had solved the puzzle that baffled the Galactic Council, but more than that, he had reminded an entire galaxy that sometimes the most powerful tool for understanding the universe was not a computer or equation, but the simple human ability to care about others and see the world with wonder. The boy who loved taking things apart had helped put the galaxy back together in a new and better way. And in his workshop on Luna Colony, surrounded by the quiet hum of machinery and the distant glow of Earth, Jake Mitchell continued to do what he loved most, solving puzzles and helping others see the beauty hidden in complex problems.